So now let's talk about the trusted advisor. So trusted advisor is a high level assessment of your account, and you don't need to install anything. It's going to be enabled right away. So it's going to analyze your AWS accounts and provide recommendations to you. And there are 5 categories of recommendations. The first one is cost optimizations and recommendations, which is going to be very helpful. Performance recommendations, security, fault tolerance, and finally service limits recommendations. Okay, so as you can see, cost optimizations and recommendations are in bold. Okay, are in bold. So its service limits. So its service limits, because that's important thing to remember. Important thing to remember for the going to the exam. I believe now you are going to get core checks and recommendations. So that is all the customer, but then as we will see, based on the support line you will have access to more checks. You can enable a weekly email notification from the console, and if you want a full trusted advisor, it's only available for business and enterprise support plans. Business and only enterprise support, not for the developer and support plan. And with this, you are going to have the ability to set CloudWatch alarms when reaching limits, and on top of it, you are going to have programmatic access using AWS Support API directly into your trusted advisor. So we can talk about AWS support plans, and there's 4 of them, starting from basic, developer, business, and enterprise. Now you don't need to remember the differences between all these support plans, but when you will actually experience through these all of the things, you will pretty much understand the differences between them. So let's say go over the details and the basics that you need to remember for the exam. The first one is basic support, and it's included for all customer and it's free. And for trusted advisor, you are going to get even 7 core checks. If you use the developer plan, it's something you have to pay for you to get more business support from AWS, but it still only gives you access to 7 core checks. I think it's like the $29 per month for the developer plan. It's some and developer plan, yeah. But it still only give you access to 7 core checks. As soon as you go into the business plan or the enterprise support plan, there you are going to have access to the full set of checks from trusted advisor, and you are going to get programmatic access to trusted advisor through the AWS support API, and that is something you have to remember going to the exam. So there are here so there are something you should know about trusted advisor before going to the exam. The first one is that trusted advisor can check if S3 bucket is made public, but it cannot check if a specific S3 objects within your bucket are made public. For this, you are much better off using something like CloudWatch events or S3 events or AWS Config rule. Then for the service limits, you can only monitor limits using trusted advisor, and that cannot be changed. But in case you want to increase the service limits to, like, the case have to be manually created in the AWS support center. So that remember that to monitor these limits, you will need programmatic access to trusted advisor, and therefore you will need to be in a business or an enterprise plan to do monitor the service limits programmatically. Now there's a new service called AWS Service Quotas, which has an API to increase the service limits, but I don't think it appears in the exam just yet. But if it does, remember AWS Service Quota has a programmatic access to change these limits, but Trusted Advisor does not have a programmatic access to change the limits. The limits can only be monitored in Trusted Advisor when you have a business and enterprise plan, but the API cannot be used to change the limit themselves. Okay, so now let's get into the architecture that I found really cool. To do some programmatic limit monitoring on Trusted Advisor, so we have a Lambda function here, and its sole purpose is going to be refreshing Trusted Advisor periodically. And to do so, it will need programmatic access to Trusted Advisor. So in this example, based on the function, it's not represented here, but it could be triggered using a CloudWatch event rule and on the cron schedule. So the Trusted Advisor checks will be running, and in case one of them is alarmed, then a CloudWatch rule will be triggered. What happens from there is pretty interesting. From there, there is going to be data sent into an SQS queue that will be submitted to Lambda function to send this to DynamoDB table. And the purpose of this is to have a history of all the times the alarms were triggered in at Trusted Advisor. So there's also a dead letter queue in case Lambda function cannot process the data from SQS. As you can see, this dead letter queue is set up at the SQS level, not at the Lambda level. Optionally, we could set up a SNS topic to notify us by email, but in this example, we have a Lambda function that is invoked by CloudWatch event rules, and from this it's going to send data into Slack using a Slack notifier, and if it needs to get access to the Slack URL and the Slack password to do so, it can get this information out of the Systems Manager Parameter Store. So in this example as well, CloudWatch event rules is going to be used to use a Lambda function, and that Lambda function can be also used to request a service increase of the quotas. So here that would give us programmatic access to change the quotas in case they are about to be reached from the Trusted Advisor check. And as you can see, it is possible to have a secondary account in this architecture where we have the exact same architecture in the bottom, but we can link the two CloudWatch event rules through something called CloudWatch event bus. And that's it. But it's good to know this kind of architecture exists, and this is really helpful going into the exam. I really like it because it's very complete and so many AWS components working together at the same time. So that's it for this lecture, and I will see you in the next one.